Everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today as a part of our Fall Career Quest. My name is Hong Win, and I'm from WGU's Career and Professional Development team. I'm so excited to introduce our presenter today. We're joined by Randy from Infoverity. And today's session, you'll be covering a little bit more about what Infoverity is and a career there. So with that, Randy, I'll go ahead and pass it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. I'm really excited to connect today. This is, certainly the kind of busy recruiting season for every company. So, been doing a lot of presentations like these and, connecting with students. Traditionally, we kind of limit more to the Midwest, but this is an amazing opportunity to connect with so many people around the country. So I was really looking forward to doing this today. As was mentioned, I do work for a company called Infoverity, and we'll get into, more about what we do and who we are here momentarily. But my role with the company, just so you know, is that I oversee all of our talent acquisition and all of our recruiting. So that's everything from university, college level recruiting, all the way up through, executive C-suite hiring. I oversee all of that because of our company size being a little bit smaller. We have a smaller HR team as well. So I'm the only one in that role at Infoverity. Sometimes companies have an entire team of recruiters or talent acquisition people, just me. So I get to do it all, which I really enjoy. So I'm going to share my screen at this point and we will dive in. And then if anybody has questions along the way, feel free to let me know or whatnot. Um, can everyone see my screen?
Yep, looks good.
All right, excellent. So we will go ahead and get started then. So, um, Infoverity then. Who are we first and foremost? So, I think that's probably what everybody's wondering right off the bat. So we are a technical consulting firm. And what we do is we focus on enterprise data management solutions. So really our goal, and we kind of joke about this at the end of the day, our goal is to make other companies' jobs easier for them. So companies come to us from across, all different sorts of industry verticals and all different parts of the world because they have questions or they have a problem they can't solve on their own. So that's really the basic of consulting at the end of the day. It's, allowing other companies to kind of outsource, problems or situations they have, or if they're just looking for some help with strategy, we can help with that as well. But our specific niche within consulting, because there are a lot of kinds of consulting, is technical consulting. So we do a lot of work that just revolves around data and information. So that's kind of Infoverity in a nutshell. So a little more specifically about us and where we're located. Infoverity itself was founded in 2011, and our headquarters are in Dublin, Ohio, which is central Ohio area. So we're about 15 minutes from downtown Columbus, Ohio. If anybody's kind of familiar with the state of Ohio, maybe 15 minutes or so from the campus of The Ohio State University. So not too far, and we do certainly love to recruit a lot of Buckeyes if we can, and then lots of other students around the state of Ohio as well. Globally, right now, we have around 250 employees, and they're spread out around a few different areas. So I mentioned just a moment ago that our headquarters are in Central Ohio, and that is actually our only physical office location in all of North America. Our only other office location, believe it or not, is in Valencia, Spain. So we have two offices right now. One is in Columbus, Ohio, and one is in Valencia, Spain. The other kind of makeup of our staff, and I'll show you a map here in a second, is really all around the United States and a couple of members in Canada. And then we have a team of people in Germany. And I mentioned we do have two physical offices. We're soon to have a third physical office in India that should be up and running and operational by the end of this calendar year. So we're really excited about that to add a third physical office before the end of this calendar year. So for our staff that are not in Central Ohio, as you can see on this map here, they are spread out all over the United States. So this is fun and it's kind of really interesting to us, and we like to show this map because it shows where everybody's located, and you can see all the different regions, all the different states on this map. We do have like a pretty good pocket of people in the Chicago area. We have quite a few people in Texas. Believe it or not, for whatever reason, we have, probably 7 or 8 people that live out in like the Denver or Colorado area, close to Denver. And just kind of a quick funny story about that. It really just took one guy moving out there, and it was one of our younger staff members. Moved out there and, just because he thought it looked really cool. Had never been and just, heard a lot of good things about Denver. So he moved out there, was a young, single guy and said like, wow, it's great out here. And then, one of his Infoverity colleagues, who's also a friend, went out there to visit and then ended up moving out there, and then a couple of other guys. So, the 7 or 8 staff members that we have out there are all these like young single guys. So they kind of call it like the Infoverity West branch. So they always say that, they want to open their own office out there. I really think what they want to do is like have a frat house, but we're not gonna let them do that. They've asked me if they can have interns out there, and my answer is always no, not unless somebody else is out there to oversee that. But we do allow our staff to work remote if they want to. Obviously by this map. So, we for entry level staff, we do really recommend they be in Central Ohio so we can just support them and support their development. But after a year or so, if they feel comfortable enough being, not physically around other people, or if something just takes them out of Central Ohio, that's okay. It's not a problem. The world of consulting is very much done over calls like this and maybe traveling out to a client site. So we're happy to help them and accommodate that. So this screen here just shows a little bit more about, kind of the type of work that we do. So you see at the top of the slide, it says 700 go lives. A go live simply just means for us when a project starts. So that doesn't necessarily mean 700 different companies we've worked with since 2011. But it means different projects that we've done. So sometimes we have clients that are repeat customers, or we'll start with one project, and then that goes really well, and they ask us to do another project, or we just continue to support them through many projects or through, back end support as well. I mentioned the types of companies we work with. It is very much global. We work with all the way up through Fortune 100 companies across all the industry verticals that you see on the screen here. I would say for us, probably over the last, let's say 2 or 3 years, a lot of our work is being done in like the hospital and healthcare analytics space, a lot in manufacturing, a lot in retail. Trying to think what else is another big one. A lot in financial services as well. That's a big one for us. We work with a lot of banks and insurance companies. If you think about and just how much data is out there, in the world. I'm sure all of you, if you pull out your phone right now, you have so many apps and loyalty programs and, fast food restaurant apps, all those places, of course, as you know, are collecting data. And, sometimes those companies that collect the data, they don't collect it in an organized way, or they collect it and don't do anything with it. So again, that's where we can come in and just help them better strategize over that data and maybe how they can move their business forward. So we're always really excited to add new logos and add new companies that we work with. But again, it's very much global based. We have sales directors not only throughout North America, but throughout Europe as well that help us find clients, and always excited to connect with new clients and have new opportunities. All right. Let me pause there and just see if there's any questions. Feel free to unmute if you have a question, or drop it in the chat just about the kind of the basics of Infoverity before I dive in a little bit deeper. All right, cool. We'll keep rolling then. Okay, so Infoverity itself, I wanted to talk just for a moment about really kind of how we're organized, because I think this is important to understand if anyone's interested in consulting or specifically Infoverity. We have our staff broken down into two big areas. We call them delivery and support. So our delivery services, which is the bulk of our employees and the bulk of our consultants, works with everything that is really kind of the beginning and all of the day-to-day work that we do with clients. So when we have a new project start, we would build a team of Infoverity staff to produce deliverables for the clients and whatever they may need done or need assistance with. So that's all the delivery parts of it. And again, you can see on the slides some of the different specialties that we have, whether it's data governance or data quality, data warehousing, marketing technology is another big space. And then our bread and butter is that second one over from left where you see MDM and PIM. That's standing for Master Data Management and Product Information Management. That's really kind of what Infoverity kind of built itself on and built its success on in the earlier days. But then we just continue to expand and evolve with the times. And like everyone else now, AI has become, such a big thing for us in the way that we can use it or help our clients use it. So that's, very much on the radar as well. So the other side of our house then is the support side. So not only do we deliver, on, a variety of different things revolving around data. We also do software implementation, so that's all the delivery side. The support side then is the back end. So it's the things that we're doing behind the scene for our clients, or it's the support that we can continue to lend to them after a project is done. So just to give like a very basic example, let's say Infoverity would work with one of our vendor partners to install some sort of data management software package that company X is going to use to collect data and information on their customers. So we would do all the front end work. We would implement that software. We would teach the company how to use it, show them how the dashboard works, show them how to pull the data. There's a lot of times where companies come back to us and they say, you know what, like we don't really have anybody on staff that can continue to look at all of that data, or that if we need a new dashboard built or we need some sort of new view, we don't have anybody that can do that. Can Infoverity continue to work with us and kind of offer that support moving forward? And the answer is yes. So that's why we have a team of support specialists that can continue to do that work for our clients, really build a relationship with them, and be that go-to assistance for whatever they may need. Right. So this slide here, I just simply want to share a little bit more about consulting because, maybe for some of you on this call, because I know, sort of the ages of students at WGU can oftentimes be a little bit non-traditional versus, 18 and 19-year-olds that I seem to talk to often at colleges and universities. But, when I talk to college students often and we talk about consulting, that's a very big and very mysterious word to them that they're not sure how to define. They've often heard the term consulting, or they know, Deloitte or McKinsey are consulting firms, but if you say like, okay, like what do they do? They don't really know. So, this is just a couple of like very basic examples as I talk to staff members and kind of ask them to define consulting and what consulting means to them. And you can see what, both Jack and Taylor, who are my colleagues, said about consulting. And really, at the end of the day, I share this slide only to say that there are lots of different types of consulting, and it can be defined in a variety of different ways. But, I think for us, our goal, our mission at the end, and I shared this already, at the end of the day, we just want to be able to help companies better use the data and information. And if we can make their lives easier, if we can make their job easier, then I think we're being successful as a company. And certainly just based on the feedback that we get from our clients, I think we're doing a good job with that. So just to dig in a little bit deeper too on some examples of what we do and really how we work, this slide shows, what we think is a pretty typical kind of workflow or a pretty typical example of the type of work that Infoverity does. And, let's say, company A, company B are out there. One of these companies can purchase another, and we know that happens all the time where companies are purchasing each other. So you basically have two very disparate sets of data. Let's say it's customer data in two different systems at these companies. A lot of the work that we do is helping companies to like take that data and combine it into one source. And that could be done a few different ways. And probably like the two easy examples would be like, okay, like company A has all of its data. We're going to lift all that data and we're going to move it into company B's system. Or maybe company A and B have the data in those two systems. Neither of them seem like they're going to be the best fit moving forward. So now we need a whole new system. And then we're going to take everybody's data out and we're going to put it into one new system. So we call that ETL, like extract, transform, and load. So it can look like a couple of different ways as I just described, but that is a very, very common situation, I guess, that a lot of companies find themselves in, and where we can come in and help. We have seen that very specifically in the hospital and healthcare space over about the last 5 years. And maybe some of you are, maybe even a little more privy to this, where, maybe there's like a smaller regional hospital that is, just kind of sits by itself. They may be, at some point gobbled up by like a larger, health system or healthcare system in the area. So of course they have all of their patient data, that small one-off hospital. We have to do something with that patient data, and we have to somehow get it over to that other hospital system's data management system. So that's a pretty common situation that we find ourselves in. And, a really big part of that when we think about data is just really cleaning and decluttering the data. So that's again that data quality or data governance work that we do. Because oftentimes in hospital systems, I think are a really great example of this, and so are retailers. Think about yourselves, think about how many times you probably sign up for a loyalty program. Why does that happen? Because you have something on an app, you forget your password, you have no idea what it is, and instead of trying to recover that password, what do? You just create another account, with Chick-fil-A or McDonald's or, whoever it might be. So now there's probably like three or four of you in the system, even though you're the same person. We run into that often. So really what we try to do is what we call deduplicate that data and come up with what's referred to or what's known as a golden record. So if there's three or four of me in a system, I've got to figure out how to combine all of those lines of data so there's just one Randy instead of four Randys. Even something as simple from a data perspective of typing your address in. One time, if you're on 123 Main Street is your address, well, maybe one time when you type it, you type out STREET for street. The next time you put ST period. Depending on the data system, that could create two completely different data points for you. That again, it's the same person, but just because you just varied the way that you indicated street, it's creating those two separate profiles for you. So again, those are like very, very basic examples, but that's a lot of the work that we do is helping companies just kind of cut through all of that noise and make sure that their data is as clean as it possibly can be. All right. Um, Pause there for a second. Any questions about that, what we do, and kind of those basic examples? All right, excellent. So moving on a little bit then, the question that I get all the time is then, well, what are you looking for? What does Infoverity look for? What sort of staff do you look for? Sort of interns do you look for? I think for us, what it really comes down to are two kind of big buckets of skills that we tend to look for often with students. Number one is what you see on the screen here, and it's a lot of those transferable skills, a lot of the soft skills. So we've talked a little about what consultants do and what InfoVerity does specifically. And hopefully, as I talked about that, you thought about some of the skills that would be important for a consultant to have. And really at the top of the list are like communication skills, problem solving skills, ability to work as part of a team. All that is really important, probably at the top of the list being communication skills because that's what we're doing, 5 days a week is just communicating with our clients and trying to explain technical things to them. And sometimes when we're having to explain technical things to our clients, we're explaining it to someone on that client side that is not technical at all. Whoever the point person is for company X, excuse me, may have just been appointed the person that's going to oversee the project with InfoVerity, but they're not a technical person. They're a marketing person or they're just a business person, and they don't understand the technology side. So our consultants then have to be very adept at explaining technical things to them in language that someone who doesn't understand it will still be able to grasp and absorb. And that real there's an art to that for sure. My background is not as a consultant. I have no technology background. I've been with the company about 5 years in kind of the recruiting space, but I worked in higher education before that. My only other career stop, I guess, was in higher ed working with students. So this was very new for me, even when I came to InfoVerity and everyone had to explain to me what this company does. And it was hard for them to explain it too, because I didn't understand it at all. And they had to keep dumbing it down for me. So our consultants are just fabulous at being able to connect with clients and explain those technical things to them. Problem solving is also very important for us. We look for candidates that are very curious thinkers, very innovative problem solvers, and I guess I'll say very determined problem solvers as well. So we love people that will try literally 50 different ways to solve a problem, before they like raise their hand and say, "Hey, I need some help." They want to exhaust every possible solution and they want to be very creative in the way that they solve problems. And if they can't solve it, absolutely, we've got plenty of staff that love to help each other out. But we really, really enjoy those people that want to keep like digging into it and want to keep, offering solutions, want to keep trying different things, before they finally raise the white flag. So, I mean, when it comes to college, and all of you are taking classes at some level at WGU, we think about, why college and how college prepares students for Infoverity. And it's, some of the things you see on the screen here. We absolutely love connecting with college students and we love recruiting from college ranks because of the types of projects, the types of curriculum, the types of things you're doing in college. If you think about, the research papers that you're doing or the projects that you're doing, maybe the group work that you have, all of those things are really setting you up to be a successful consultant, whether you know it or not, or whether you want to be a consultant or not. We also really love just the breadth and the depth of education that we see from college students, because at many colleges and universities, even the students might complain about it sometimes, you're asked to or almost forced to take, different classes. Maybe you have to take a liberal arts course or you have to take a science. And, we know a lot of times, students say like, oh, like, why do I have to take this? It doesn't have anything to do with my major or what I want to do moving forward. But it's just helping you form just a better way to think, a better way to solve problems. It's, increasing your just, mental diversity as well. And we love that. We recruit across all majors. We recruit at a variety of different types of colleges and universities, everything from, massive state schools all the way down to tiny liberal arts colleges and everything in between. Again, just because of the diversity of thought and the diversity of thinkers that we find in those student populations. So that's, for us, that's really why college is so important. But it's also the opportunity for students just to hone other skills too. Things as basic as communication skills. I'm sure there's classes where you have to give presentations. That's great. A lot of students are involved in, community activism or student organizations where you're able to really build your communication and networking skills. All of that for us is really important, and those are just adding more tools to the tool belt, so to speak. So, the college experience is something that we value very highly, and that's why we do a lot of recruiting at the college level. I want to pivot here for just these last couple of slides, and then we'll get into questions. But the last couple of slides here, really just talk about our culture and what we really feel is really, what sets Infoverity apart. And for us, one of the things that's really interesting about Infoverity is that we are an employee-owned company. So that is something that is actually pretty rare. I believe the most recent statistics on employee-owned companies in the United States, there were around maybe 6,500, maybe 7,000 employee-owned companies in the United States. And that may sound like a big number on the surface, but of course, if you think about how many probably hundreds of thousands of companies there are in the United States, it's a pretty small percentage. So it's something we're really proud of being an employee-owned company, which means that all of us that work at Infoverity are also employees, or excuse me, employee owners of the company as well. And I think that drives a lot of our culture because at the end of the day, I know if I'm successful, it's going to help out my colleagues and vice versa. If my colleagues are successful, it's going to help me out and benefit me as well as an owner. So we have staff that, from a culture perspective, are just so kind and so gracious and so helpful and, willing to do anything they can to help somebody else out and, help, our younger staff, understand concepts and the different technologies we utilize. Help our staff just kind of grow and develop and upskill themselves. That's important for everybody at Infoverity. When we kind of get past that though, in terms of our culture, we really, so some of our staff say, we work hard and play hard. And, I don't know how much we play hard, but what I can say is that we do a lot of things that really engage our staff and allow them to come together, allow them to get to know each other and have some fun for sure. We have two big events each year where all of our staff from around the country come together. We have those in January and in June, and they're opportunities for training and development, but more than anything else, they're just opportunities to get everybody in the same place at the same time, celebrate all of our success, and recognize those people that are doing great work. So it's more of a celebration than anything else. We also have a variety of what we call engagement groups, and you can see that in the green block on the screen here. Our engagement groups are like employee groups. They are I honestly think they're like student organizations at colleges and universities. We have staff that have an interest in something outside of work, and they say, hey, I'd love to get people together that have a similar interest to mine, and we can just share in that interest together. So we have, oh man, probably 20 plus engagement groups at this point, and it's everything from a book club to a cooking club to groups that play golf together in the summer to sand volleyball groups to trying to think what else. Really everything and anything in between. Board game groups. We have a group of people that are super passionate about Dungeons and Dragons. So they get together and they go through, I think they're called campaigns with Dungeons and Dragons. So those types of things, we have for everybody. And I help to oversee our culture and our engagement groups. And I always tell our staff, like, hey, go look at the engagement group page online. And if you don't see something that you like, great, start your own group, whatever you want to do. Now that we're in October and, some people say it's spooky season, we have a group of people that get together every Friday in October and they watch scary movies and they eat pizza in the office after work. So if like scary movies are your thing, which for me, they're absolutely not. But if it is, we've got people that stay every Friday and watch scary movies. So there's something for everyone. And again, if you don't find something, you can create your own group. But, things like that are really important to us. And we also, I think we're kind of blessed right now where because of a lot of the recruiting we do comes from like colleges and universities, our I guess our age demographic of our staff skews a little bit younger. So we have a lot of people that I guess how do I want to say that they're in like a similar spot in life right now where, they're not married yet, they don't have children yet, so maybe they have a little more free time. So we have staff that just hang out all the time, like in the evening, on the weekend, they get to know each other and in the summer they'll, bounce around to different apartment complexes that people have, and we'll go swimming together. So I mean that to me just kind of, warms my heart because, I haven't had many jobs in my life, but I've always really, really enjoyed and, appreciated my work colleagues. But I don't know if I would ever really say like I wanted to hang out with them all the time after work. And, maybe you've had jobs like that too. Our staff really, truly, honestly like hanging out with each other and become friends with each other. Um, to be honest, we have two couples right now that are engaged and they met at Infoverity and now are getting married. So my goal, my dream is to have staff come in and I brought them in and then they ask me to perform their wedding for them. That's my ultimate goal. It hasn't happened yet, but it will someday because I always put it out there in the universe. So somebody's gonna ask me to marry them at some point. That's my goal. But I say all that to say that our staff really truly does get along well, and I love that about our staff. I think it says a lot about who we are as a company. All right, and then last slide here, I just want to talk very briefly about the opportunities that we have. So all of our opportunities are always on our careers page. They're on Handshake as well when we do have them available. So the two traditional opportunities that we have when we're looking at recruiting out of the college ranks will be our internship program and then our entry-level consultant development program. I will say that this fall we're doing most of our focus, most of our recruiting on our internship program for the summer of 2026 because we had such a successful internship summer this past summer, summer of 2025. We offered quite a few of our interns to come back after graduation and join us as entry level analysts. And, I think we had 11 interns. We offered 8 of them to come back and all 8 said yes, which is amazing and also very rare. Typically, you don't get like 100%, return when you ask people to come back, which is, we were expecting that not all 8 would say yes. We just weren't sure how many of the 8 would say yes. But yeah, all 8 said yes. So we kind of had to pivot a little bit, and we're just focusing on summer intern recruiting right now, which works just fine for us. But our internship program, it's a 12-week internship in our office in Dublin, Ohio throughout the summer. And, it's a great opportunity really to learn more about consulting, specifically technical consulting as well, if you have an interest in that. We try to get our interns involved in a variety of different projects, everything from a mock project that really simulates end to end what a consulting project looks like. We also have them involved in a variety of external projects. We do our best to get our interns connected with clients. So, working alongside their mentor, working alongside Infoverity staff, we want to do our best to get all of our interns, exposure to client work and to see what it's like to work with a client or interact with a client. And that's something that, we take a lot of pride in, is trying to give them those opportunities. And then the other opportunity, our consultant development program, is a year-long training and development program that we have for all of our analysts. So you come in day one, full-time staff member at Infoverity as an analyst, and you start through our consultant development program. And the program is really designed just to support and develop all of our newest staff members, give them all the tools that are needed to be an expert level consultant, and really give them a safe place to grow and learn. So we have our analysts through the consultant development program start on the same day. So you come in with a cohort of people, anywhere from, 5 people to 10 people to 12 people, whatever it might be. But you really get to know each other and you have that cohort feel so you can lean on each other, you can support each other, you can learn, at the same time as everybody else, taking the same workshops and, hearing from our staff on just a variety of different topics. So that's a program, again, that we're really proud of, that we've done a good job of developing over the past few years to get to a point now where, when we have analysts come in, on day one, we're ready to go with training and development for them. And, after the first week or two of kind of, I'll say boot camp style training, we can get them connected with some of our staff so they're able to shadow and be mentored. And we try to get them on projects as soon as possible. So, they're not just sitting around in training, but, the way to learn is just to go out and do it in a safe environment and a controlled environment. So we want to give them the space to do that. All right, that is all I have. So I tried to get through that pretty quick because I wanted to leave time for questions. So let me stop sharing here. But what questions do people have? I'm happy to answer, anything I can for any of you.
This is fantastic, Randy. Sorry, I apologize. I came in early. So good to see you again.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Let's see. We have some things here happening in the chat. Oh, Addison asked how often are interns converted to full-time roles? I know this year you said it was 8 out of
Yeah.
the 11, but what is typically your conversion rate?
Right, right. No, I'll be honest, it is typically pretty high. I mean, we never have more than about, 10 to 12 interns total. And we keep our intern cohort purposefully small because typically, we're only going to have, maybe 6 or 7, maybe 8 intern offers to give to come back and convert to a full-time analyst. So we don't want to get into the situation where we only have, 5 or 6 spots to give and we have 40 interns or something like that. That's not fair to the students and we don't want to do that. So we try to keep those numbers a little bit closer, but our conversion rate is pretty high. That's absolutely our goal, is to pipeline our interns to be full-time entry level analysts after the internship program is complete.
Fantastic. And then I'm just going to pick on Edison's question here since it's a follow-up. Are the internships really competitive? So kind of thinking of like how many applications you're getting versus how many you
Yeah,
end up taking on.
right, right. And that's a great question. I was just looking at both Handshake and then at our internal posting system. So through Handshake, we just push everybody to our own ATS just to apply there to keep it in one spot. I think we have a little over 400 applicants right now for our summer 2026 internship. And again, we'll have, about a dozen or so interns next summer. So that gives you a little bit of an
Mhm.
idea on the number of applications that we typically get.
All right, so then with that, I'm going to jump to RJ's question because I think it flows really well. So then what are some ways individuals can really stand out in
Mm,
that application
mhm,
process and then the interview process, which is
mhm.
RJ's real question?
Yeah, so through the application process, I will say some of the things that we look for on resumes are some of the things that I talked about during the presentation, right? So if there are ways that you can demonstrate on your resume that, you're communication skills, your problem solving skills, your teamwork skills, that's great. So even if that's coming from, student organization leadership, or maybe you have a part-time job where you are like a shift manager, or it's a customer service related job, that shows us a lot and tells us a lot, because if you have, a customer service job where you're interacting with the public and interacting with customers or clients, that's great. I mean, it doesn't have to be technical related, it doesn't have to be consulting related, but if you are always, solving problems at your workplace, even if it's at a restaurant or a retail store, that's fantastic. We love to see things like that. The other thing to more specifically your question, RJ, is, when we look at resumes, we're also looking at what sort of technical skills that students have. Now, I will say the caveat is we're not looking for expert level, computer software people and coders and developers because you're students and we understand you're still learning. But we do look for students that have had some exposure, maybe some hands-on familiarity with platforms like, SQL, Python, R, maybe Power BI or Tableau. I've even seen some students this fall for the first time list programs like Databricks or Snowflake on their resume. Again, you don't have to be an expert user at any of those, but if you've had some familiarity with them or some exposure to them, it'll just help you hit the ground running if you were to join us as an intern.
Fantastic. All right. And then there was another question about the application. It says, I looked at the page and can we submit our three references later, or do we submit them right away when we apply?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I'd have to double check the system for the internship. I don't know if it's required for the references, but I'll be very honest with all of you on this call. But for intern for that position, we're not looking very closely at their references. We use our applicant system for all of our positions, whether it's for an intern or whether it's for a CEO, if we were hiring that. So for the intern position, again, being very transparent, we don't look very closely at that. So I wouldn't worry that too much.
Fantastic. And then another great question here. Are you looking to expand to Canada at all, or would you take Canadian applicants?
Yeah, no, that is a good question. Canada is certainly on the radar because we do have a couple of staff members up in Canada. To answer the question specifically, Canadian applicants are tricky, but we do have like a third party entity that we work through where our Canadian Infoverity staff members they're almost like subcontractors. So technically, they're employees of this third party entity that takes care of all of the Canadian like government and tax regulations to make sure that everything's being done in the right way. So they do work for Infoverity. There are staff members, but technically, they're subcontractors. So the short answer to the question is yes, we would look at Canadian applicants. The other part of the question is I wouldn't be shocked if at some point, maybe within the next 5 or to 7 years, we would have a Canadian office somewhere because we do get a lot of Canadian clients or companies that are based in Canada that are looking to do work with us, which is absolutely fine. But what we are then seeing as a byproduct of that is some of those clients that we have in Canada when they are, starting to vet Infoverity and we start to form a team of consultants that will work on the project. Sometimes they ask for, other times they require that at least one of the people be Canadian citizens. So that's just kind of a little bit of a hurdle we have to get over sometimes. So again, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point we do have a Canadian office because of that.
Fantastic. Great questions, everyone. Let's see. I
Yeah.
just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. All right. Anyone else? Well, this has been fantastic. I will have to say, I know Randy, me and you had a a really good
Yeah.
conversation. But just seeing it again, and I think especially focusing on skill sets. I know me and you talked about, not really looking at majors, but really focusing on those skill sets is important to you all. And we love to see that because I think too at WGU our programs, so many of them, especially nowadays, have such a big data component and
Hmm.
halfway through the program, you're like, actually, this kind of sounds cool, right? And so
Yeah.
I think that's really fantastic. Well, Thank you again so much for your time.
Mhm.
I will share out this recording with
Sure.
everyone after the call. And if it's okay, I know I saw your LinkedIn in there. I'll share that out as well for folks to
Yeah, please
connect
do.
with you to keep up to date on opportunities. And
Mhm.
yeah, thank you everyone for joining us today. I apologize, that was a little bit in back-to-back sessions. So um, thank you. Anyone? See, I've got lots of thank yous in the chat. So fantastic. I will go ahead and stop the recording. Okay, fantastic. All right, well.